just a night. In a serene African village cradled by the embrace of lush valleys and swaying palms, there lived a young woman named Adama. She was the epitome of innocence and decency, her laughter a melody that brightened the lives of all who knew her. Adama, a virgin maiden, held fast to her values, her purity a cherished treasure in the eyes of her community. Yet one fateful night, darkness descended upon the village like a shroud. As the moon cast its gentle glow over the sleeping landscape, Adama found herself ensnared in a nightmare from which she could not escape. A shadow emerged from the depths of the night, its presence suffocating, its touch a violation of her very being. In the aftermath of the unspeakable act, Adama gathered what remained of her shattered courage and sought justice from the village elders. With tears streaming down her cheeks and her voice quivering with emotion, she recounted the horrors of that fateful night, hoping against hope that her pleas would be heard and justice served. But the elders, blinded by their own prejudice and pride, turned a deaf ear to Adama's cries for help. They scoffed at her accusations, dismissing them as the fantasies of a delusional girl. In a cruel display of indifference, they branded Adama a liar and a disgrace to her family, her name dragged through the mud and her dignity trampled beneath their callous feet. Humiliated and ostracized by those she had once called neighbors and friends, Adama became a pariah in her own village, the subject of scorn and ridicule at every turn. Mocked and belittled by those who had once held her in high esteem, she found herself alone in a world that had turned its back on her in her hour of need. But amidst the darkness, a flicker of hope remained. Though battered and bruised, Adama refused to surrender to despair. With each passing day, she found solace in the unwavering support of a few kind souls who saw beyond the lies and prejudice that clouded the minds of their fellow villagers. Meanwhile, the village began to suffer the consequences of their callous treatment of Adama. The skies remained stubbornly clear, withholding the life-giving rains that had once nourished their crops and sustained their way of life. The fields lay fallow, the earth cracked and parched beneath the scorching sun, while hunger stalked the land like a silent predator. Its claws sharpened by the sins of those who had turned a blind eye to the suffering of one of their own. In their desperation, the villagers turned to the gods of the land, beseeching them for mercy and guidance in their time of need. And in response, the gods spoke with a voice that thundered through the heavens, shaking the very foundations of the earth. "You have wronged one of your own," the gods declared, their words echoing like the roar of a mighty lion. "To restore balance to the land, you must seek out the one you have cast aside and make amends for your transgressions. Only then will the rains return and the land be healed." With heavy hearts and spirits weighed down by guilt, the villagers set out on a journey to find Adama and seek her forgiveness. Months passed as they searched far and wide, their footsteps echoing through distant lands and forgotten realms in their quest to right the wrongs of the past. And finally, their efforts bore fruit. In a far-off land, they found Adama, her beauty undimmed by the passage of time, her spirit unbroken by the trials she had endured. But when they pleaded for her forgiveness and asked her to return with them to the village, she hesitated, her eyes clouded with memories of the pain and suffering she had endured. It was only after much soul-searching and reflection that Adama relented, her heart softened by the genuine remorse and humility of those who had once scorned her. With tears of joy and reconciliation, she returned with them to the village, her presence a beacon of hope and healing in a world that had been torn apart by darkness and despair. And as Adama took her place once more among her fellow villagers, her dignity and grace restored, the heavens opened up and the rains began to fall, washing away the sins of the past and nourishing the land with the promise of a new beginning. For in the end, it was not just Adama who found redemption, but the entire village, united in their resolve to heal the wounds of the past and forge a future filled with hope and forgiveness. The return of Adama marked the beginning of a new chapter for the village. Guided by the lessons learned from their past mistakes, they vowed to build a community rooted in compassion and solidarity, where no one would ever again be made to suffer the indignities that Adama had endured. Together, they worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost, their efforts fueled by a newfound sense of purpose and determination. They tended to the fields with care and diligence, their hands working in harmony with the rhythms of the earth. They reached out to neighboring villages, forging alliances based on mutual respect and cooperation, and together they faced the challenges of the future with courage and resilience. But amidst the joy and celebration that marked their newfound unity, there remained a lingering sense of regret for the pain and suffering they had caused Adama. Despite their best efforts to make amends, they could never fully erase the scars that marred her spirit, nor could they ever truly repay the debt they owed her for the injustices she had endured. And so they turned to the gods once more, seeking guidance on how best to honor Adama and atone for their sins. And once again, the gods answered their prayers, their voices a whisper on the wind that carried with them a message of hope and redemption. Adama must be honored as a symbol of strength and resilience, the gods declared, their words echoing through the hearts of all who heard them. She shall be known as the guardian of virtue, and her name shall be spoken with reverence and respect for generations to come. With hearts full of gratitude and humility, the villagers embraced their newfound purpose, vowing to uphold the legacy of Adama and ensure that her sacrifices would never be forgotten. And as they looked to the future with hope and optimism, they knew that the lessons learned from their past mistakes would serve as a guiding light, illuminating their path as they embarked on a journey of healing and redemption. In the wake of their newfound resolve, the villagers rallied together, their spirits buoyed by a sense of purpose and unity. They set about implementing measures to ensure that the injustices suffered by Adama would never be repeated, enacting laws that protected the rights and dignity of all members of the community, especially its women. Under the guidance of the village elders, they established support networks and counseling services to aid those who had experienced trauma and abuse, offering a safe haven for those in need of refuge. They organized educational programs to raise awareness about consent and respect, empowering the youth with the knowledge they needed to build healthy and respectful relationships. But perhaps most importantly, they worked to cultivate a culture of empathy and compassion where the voices of the marginalized and vulnerable were heard and valued. They made a solemn vow to never again turn a blind eye to the suffering of their fellow villagers, to stand up against injustice wherever it may be found, and to uphold the principles of fairness and equality that formed the foundation of their society. As the months passed, the village began to flourish once more, its fields lush and verdant, its people united in their pursuit of a brighter future. And at the heart of it all stood Adama, her spirit shining like a beacon of hope in the darkness, her presence a constant reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of forgiveness to heal even the deepest of wounds. But despite the progress that had been made, Adama still carried the scars of her ordeal, the memories of that fateful night forever etched into her soul. And though she had found solace and acceptance within the embrace of her community, There were moments when the pain threatened to overwhelm her, when the weight of her past bore down upon her like a burden too heavy to bear. It was during one such moment of despair that Adama received an unexpected visitor, a messenger from a neighboring village, bearing news of a young woman who had come seeking refuge from a similar fate. Moved by compassion and empathy, Adama knew that she could not turn her back on someone in need, not when she had the power to offer them the same support and guidance that had been given to her. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of purpose burning bright within her, Adama set out once more on a journey, this time to offer hope and healing to another soul in need. She traveled far and wide, her footsteps guided by the light of empathy and the promise of redemption, until at last she found herself face to face with the young woman whose fate mirrored her own. With tears streaming down her cheeks and her voice trembling with emotion, Adama offered the young woman a hand of friendship and support, her words a balm to the wounds of the past. And as they embraced, two souls united in their shared struggle, Adama knew that she had found her calling, to be a beacon of hope and healing in a world too often shrouded in darkness. And so, hand in hand, Adama and the young woman returned to the village, their spirits uplifted by the knowledge that they were not alone, that they had each other to lean on in times of need. And as they walked through the streets, their heads held high and their hearts filled with hope, they knew that their journey was far from over, but that together they could overcome any obstacle that stood in their way. And so, under the watchful gaze of the stars above, Adama and the young woman stood together, their hands clasped tight, their spirits ablaze with the fire of resilience and determination. For in the tapestry of their lives, woven with threads of love and loss, they had discovered the true meaning of redemption, the power to rise above adversity and forge a new path forward, guided by the light of compassion and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.